All right, what's up, y'all? So we're back with another episode of Brutally Simple Cooking, and today we're talking about brutally simple cooking. Now, what do I mean by brutally simple? I mean starting with real food first. Real food is the star of the show. A simple list of ingredients and a simple process versus complicated recipes. Now, what I want to show you is an approach that you can use for just about any food. Well, almost any food. But definitely the foods you're going to be consuming on a day-to-day basis, because that's the whole point. It's got to be simple so you can make this work in a crazy modern lifestyle. Now, obviously, you're welcome to experiment with complicated recipes, and there's some things that just don't lend themselves to be brutally simple. Pro tip, you can choose to stay away from the things that don't lend themselves to be brutally simple. And for the day-to-day meals, you need things to be quick, simple, and easy. Now, before we get started, here's a crucial concept, mise en place. It's a French culinary phrase that means putting in place or to gather, which means that you're going to gather everything that you need for whatever it is that you're cooking, including your equipment, your food, your spices, and your seasoning, and have it all laid out. And it's useful to go through a visualization process in your mind, cooking the entire dish, making sure that you have everything there. Now, when you use brutally simple cooking and you use mise en place, this way of cooking lends itself to be really easy to clean up. So let's go over our simple list of equipment. You'll need a chef knife and a carving board, a skillet, baking sheets, Instant Pot, slow cooker, and the utensils necessary to handle your food. These are the workhorses of the brutally simple kitchen. For seasonings, again, you can get crazy if you want. But what I like to use 99% of the time is the brutally simple seasoning trio, salt, pepper, garlic. Repeat it with me, salt, pepper, garlic. That's pretty much all you need to keep things brutally simple. Now, you may want some herbs. I think a good herb blend is always just a basic Italian seasoning. And then what are the foods that we're talking about here that lend themselves to a very simple process? We're talking about eggs. We're talking about beef, including steaks, ground beef and roast. We're talking about chicken, including chicken breasts, tenderloin, legs, thighs, and wings. We're talking about pork, which includes pork chops and pork roast. We're talking about pre-seasoned and cured things like bacon and sausage. We're talking about tubers, starchy things like potatoes and sweet potatoes. We're talking about white rice, and we're talking about vegetables. Now let's talk skillet cooking 101. Skillet cooking 101. You're gonna take your skillet and you're gonna heat it up. I'd say a good heat, medium high, around the 7 to 8 is usually what I do most of my cooking at. Now that heating process first seals the pan, making it non-stick or more non-stick. Next, add your fat. If you want just a thin layer of fat, like for some eggs, you can use a stick of butter. If you want a thicker layer of fat, like for cooking a steak, you can use a dollop of any appropriate traditional fat. Now, pro tip, the best fats to cook with are dominantly saturated, and that includes butter, ghee, tallow, and coconut oil. Eggs, you can crack them right into the skillet, or you can pre-mix them beforehand, and if you got skills, you can make an omelet. Salt, pepper. Crumbling in some goat cheese. Here comes the flip. Boom. Same thing, hot skillet. Add some fat. Add your steak. Salt, pepper, garlic. Give it a little peek, make sure it's nice and brown. Now for pieces of meat in the skillet, such as steaks and pork chops, you're looking to sear for 3 to 4 minutes, and you just want to check and see if they're brown and crispy on one side before flipping over to the other side. Salt, pepper, garlic, finger test. Now you can use a thermometer to check cooking temperatures, but I like to use the finger test. The finger test is basically if it's super soft, then you know it's super rare. The more firm it is, the more cooked it is, and if it's firm, it's well done. Pro tip, never let steak grease go to waste. Always cook something in it, whether it's a few eggs or some double cooked sweet potatoes or some leftover rice. Now, pro tip, if you got a thick piece of meat, you can always make it thin by cutting it in half. Boom. Pork chops, same thing. Hot skillet, add some fat, add the pork chops. Salt, pepper, garlic. About 4 minutes later, give it a little peek. Nice and brown. salt, pepper, garlic, finger test. That's firm. Good to go. Finger test. Oh yeah, that's firm too. Pro tip to make chicken tenders: if you don't have tenderloins accessible or they're too expensive, you can cut up a chicken breast. Skillet hot, add the fat. Brutally simple. Chicken fingers. Now, pro tip: this is a chicken breast cut up into thin slices. Not as good as a tenderloin, but still gives you fingers. Salt, pepper, garlic. Time to flip. Nice and brown. Salt, garlic. Now you can always cook ground beef in a skillet, but a great dish and easy is ground beef with vegetables. I call it a skillet dish. Same rules apply. Heat the skillet, add the fat, put the ground beef in the vegetables, salt, pepper, garlic, and then let it cook. Oven cooking 101. Now the workhorse of the oven is going to be bacon sheets, and I love using these stainless steel bacon sheets. You're welcome to line them with some tin foil for easy cleanup, but aluminum does have some toxicity potential, so I always like to use parchment paper. And to keep things brutally simple, the temperature that I always cook at is going to be 360 degrees. Brutally simple chicken fingers from the oven. Now you can definitely cook burgers in the skillet, but you can also oven bake them to minimize mess. Now, do you oven bake your bacon? You should, because it's brutally, pro tip, oven bake your bacon because it's brutally simple. Oven baked bacon coming right up. Look at that gorgeousness. Pro tip, if you need something to pour your bacon grease in, you can just cut open a can. Now, do you oven bake your sausages, hot dogs, and even sweet potatoes? You should. Why? Because pro tip, it's brutally simple. Oven baked sausages and hot dogs, good to go. If you're ever in doubt, you can always use your thermometer. Now, potatoes need to be soft to the touch, a squeeze. They're not there yet, so we're gonna go ahead and put these back in the oven. All right, checking on the potatoes. We're gonna give it a squeeze. Oh yeah, nice and soft, and you know those are done. And then what's great about these cooked sweet potatoes, if you keep them in the skin, you can put them in the fridge as is because the skin's like a protective layer, and then you can pull them out later and reheat them as you need. Now, oven baked vegetables are awesome. Just make sure that you mise en place and prep them all beforehand. Now, pro tip, toss your veggies in melted butter to make them taste even more amazing. And then as always, salt, pepper, more pepper, garlic. Oh yeah, look at that gorgeousness. And you can bake pretty much anything. This is my liver and heart. Moving on to the Instant Pot. Eggs. Eggs are brutally simple in the Instant Pot. You take the Instant Pot, you take your grate, you add a half a cup to a cup of water so it can pressurize. You layer the eggs in one layer on the grate, put the top on. You're gonna cook for 6 minutes. Boom, as soon as it's done, you're gonna automatically depressurize, and then you're gonna ice bath them. I just like to fill it with water. Let those guys chill. Now, after they've completely cooled, if you do hard-boiled eggs like this, they'll peel perfect every time. Rice is unbelievably brutally simple in the Instant Pot. You just add rice, double the amount with bone broth. Look at that great goodness. Pro tip, if you don't cook your rice with bone broth, there's something wrong with you. But you can use water. I also like to add a big chunk of butter or traditional fat, salt, pepper, optional garlic if you want it. Seal, rice setting. Now with rice, you can let it depressurize naturally because it's almost like the longer the rice cooks or stays warm, the fluffier it gets. Oh yes, look at that fluffy goodness. Now ground beef in the Instant Pot is awesome. I like to make sure I got it broken up. And then you can add veggies. I like to add a little bit of rice. You need some liquid to pressurize it, so you could use some water, but there's something wrong with you if you ain't using stock. Salt, pepper, garlic. Wait, what was this? What was going on with this thing? I think it was acting wonky. And for this, I'll usually go probably 13 minutes. All right, and then we'll let that naturally depressurize. Ground beef and rice coming right up. Now last but not least is the slow cooker, and the best thing to use the slow cooker for is beef and pork roasts. So you're gonna start with a slow cooker. You're gonna mise en place your veggies and put them in there. You're gonna add some liquid, ideally some bone stock, and then you guessed it, some salt, pepper, garlic. And then you're gonna add your roast and some more salt, pepper, garlic. And if you want to, you can add some Italian seasoning. Set that sucker on low for about 6 to 8 hours or until everything falls apart. And then you have delicious goodness. And there you have it, folks. Brutally simple cooking. So the next time you hear somebody complaining about how complicated cooking is, you can look them dead in the eye and say, pro tip, it doesn't have to be complicated if you keep it brutally simple.